Thank you. You are watching the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education regular meeting. Based upon ongoing health issues involving COVID-19, school board meetings will be held for the public in a virtual environment in the interest of everyone's health and safety at this time. It is our sincere hope to return to meetings in person with the public present as soon as possible. The board is using Zoom as its host of virtual meetings and can be live streamed on the Oshkosh Media YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/Oshkosh Media. All right, moving on to the regular scheduled meeting. Are we in compliance with open meeting law notification?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you. Please call the roll.
Wyman?
Here.
Carlin?
Here.
Herzog?
Here.
Carnes?
Here.
Peschel?
Here.
Salaji?
Here.
Wright?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Dr. Davis, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we are at the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes that we would like to make to the agenda this evening? Seeing none? One last chance. Okay. We will move forward with no changes to tonight's agenda. All right, next up we are at board administrative reports. First is mine. I'm going to be brief, and I just wanted to thank, I wanted to start off with thanking all the band students in the Oshkosh Area School District. Because of Bandorama would not be as successful as it was if we didn't have over 500 students in learning how to play musical instruments for the band. So that was wonderful. In addition, I want to thank all the great staff that helped compose that music and to help students deliver it to our community. I want to thank all the families that were there to support, friends and families of all the students that were there. And as well, I want to thank the volunteers who made that event go as it was. As a parent who has two children learning musical instruments and band, I saw the influx of volunteer requests coming from the band teachers from throughout the week, so leading up to Bandorama. It was a great event. For the public that maybe didn't see it on Facebook, definitely didn't see it on TV. Basically, this room, the field house, the Oshkosh North Field House, from one end to the other end was completely filled up with 500 plus band students and all of their supporters. And if we picture going to a basketball game in that space is how we usually pick it up, usually visualize that space. This was pretty crazy to see in the sense that this was all musicians and their supporters. So it was a great event all the way around. I also want to thank, I saw several board members there, and so it was great seeing that you were out in the community supporting our students, our band students and their families as well. So that is my report for the evening.
All right, so for the superintendent's good news report tonight, first of all, I want to thank recognize the Communities Program at Oshkosh North, partnering with Amnesty International to host Right for Rights on Monday, December 20th. Students will be showcasing 10 current human rights cases throughout the world, and will be asking attendees to sign letters in order to help bring justice for these individuals. So thank you for your continued advocacy in the community programs. Bob had mentioned the Bandorama, so just a few pictures for everybody there, as he said, literally wall to wall, and in the Oshkosh North Field House, and also just want to echo just the tremendous work, especially of our staff, You know, there's many of those students just picked up an instrument probably 3 months ago, so for our 6th graders to be able to perform and at the very end doing a world premiere song that was actually composed for our students, for our 6th graders through 12th graders to be able to play that together was quite an accomplishment. So thank you for everyone who participated in that. The job very well done. A few weeks ago, 5th graders at Oakwood Elementary School put on a Dash robot parade. The class learned how to code their robots using an iPad app and create a parade route, and had to follow specific constraints as they design their program. So you can check out the parade and the pure joy on their faces in the video link that's posted online. Our district's commitment to technology and many of our talented staff members were featured at the annual SLATE conference, which stands for School Leaders Advancing Technology and Education. OASD teachers from multiple schools and disciplines were asked to show what our district is doing in terms of coding and robotics, plus classroom teachers from Washington Elementary and Aaron Cole, Oshkosh West principal, were also asked to present. And the incredible showing is a testament to the technology advances our district is making and the valuable hands-on learning opportunities for our students, thanks to our talented team members. And I also want to just have a shout out to Dr. Gudlock and his continued leadership at a district level to coordinate all of these opportunities. He's certainly, you know, one of the best, if not the best, from a technology administration standpoint. So thank you, Dr. Gudlock, in that continued effort. OASD staff celebrations. So our district is home to over 1,500 teachers and staff who are dedicated to supporting student success. We know that our staff are doing amazing things every day, and in an effort to celebrate them, we're putting a spotlight on their work. So thanks to the submission from a colleague, we were able to celebrate Kyle Quidnow, a teacher at Second Chance and Jackson Street programs. This year, Kyle has helped several seniors at Second Chance finish their English and Social Studies credits to meet their graduation requirements. Plus, he has 4 students from Jackson Street program earn credits and graduate with their high school diplomas. His colleague had this to say about him: Kyle is one of the most selfless teachers and will do anything he can do to help out with no hesitation. Kyle says seeing students accomplish graduation requirements and have a sense of fulfillment is what motivates him most. We're grateful for Kyle's efforts and all of our staff members who are doing great work across our district. So congratulations, Kyle, on that recognition. And then just at the end, just a glance at some of the activities that I've had the opportunity to be part of over the last couple of weeks. So again, great to be able to finish out the year in a lot of different places, and especially these holiday celebrations certainly kind of brings the spirit back to the time of year that we're in. So thanks to everybody for being gracious enough to host me. And that concludes the superintendent's report for tonight.
Thank you for your report. Looks like we have no district administrator supplemental reports, correct? And I just want to make one comment about that, because this is a change in probably about a year and a half. So for the last year and a half, we've had a COVID-19 supplemental report at every single regular board meeting. And we made the conscious choice to have that at 1 meeting a month at this point. So that was a decision that was discussed between Dr. Herzog, Dr. Davis, and I in regards to whether that was an appropriate step to take. And we felt it was. We felt that it gives us the opportunity to be provided the most accurate information on a monthly basis. So, all right. Next up, we have other reports. Any committee chairs? I believe we have potentially a report from the Education Committee and the Legislative Committee. Is that correct?
Correct.
Facilities and finance.
And Facilities and Finance.
And
Policy?
Yep.
All right. When I viewed the folder earlier today, not all of those minutes were in there yet. So, okay. So we will start with Facilities and Finance.
All right, thank you very much. The Facilities and Finance Committee has been busy over the month of November. There was a meeting held on November 18th. We looked at substitute pay structure in order to bring the district more in line with substitute teacher pay in surrounding districts, and more importantly, attract and retain substitutes in the district, because it is an issue statewide. We also had a request for proposal for fire alarm systems at both Oakwood and North high school, and that is another agenda item that we will be voting on tonight. There was a bidding process and a recommendation made to bring those systems up into the 21st century. We also spent a lot of time talking about the initial consumer price index projections and discussion. The district was projected to lose $3 million, there's a big difference. $3 million with the rollout of the new health insurance plan and $1 million due to lost revenue. It would take a couple of years for the district to realize how much they would save each year in regard to the new health insurance plan. The committee will be looking into finding a way to take the money the district will be saving in the long run from the self-funded health insurance and put it back in the hands of the staff in the form of wages and improved work environments. And this will be addressed at the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting, which will next meet tomorrow morning. There was a budget variance report from Mr. Nehans, and he noted that the district is tracking well at this point in the year. We also met on November 30th. That was a special meeting. We don't normally meet on a Monday, and we don't normally meet 2 weeks after an initial meeting. But it was felt we needed to do that in order to move the process along as far as proposing a name for the new middle school. There was also discussion about choosing a mascot for the school. However, the committee members felt that that was really a decision that belonged to the school and not to the board. The survey results came back from a second survey based on the results from student votes and staff, community input. And so the recommendation for the new school, which you have before you and is an agenda item tonight to be voted on, would be Jesse Jack Hooper. And then Paul Poberesny and Val Phillips would be represented also by having different names of the inside of the school named after them. We also discussed recreational department seasonal workers. There's a shortage of rec department workers, primarily in the area of lifeguards. And so Mr. Helmbrecht from the rec department, along with Mr. Nehans, was recommending a wage increase to, I believe it's $12 an hour, and that's also to be voted on this evening. So thank you. It's been a good committee.
Next up, how about a report from the Education Committee?
All right, so we met on Thursday, December 2nd. On the agenda for this one, we talked about the Diversity Parent Group that was created, I remember right, last year, and consisting of 23 members. Some of the items that this group discusses are, in our community, systemic racism, the OASD equity journey with ICS, which wrapped up last week, special education in the OASD, curriculum and diversity, conscious discipline, safe training, students with refugee backgrounds, and mental health. They meet, try to meet bi-monthly. I know they just had a meeting, I believe, a couple weeks ago as well. So that's important. And then the other item that we kind of touched on that's not on here was, Dr. Davis, you had mentioned the literacy piece that we had talked about. We are having that audited through HISA 6, and that will come back to the Education Committee in February so that we can vet that through before it comes back to the board. So that's the stuff we talked about. Thanks.
All right. Next up is Legislative Committee.
Thank you. The Legislative Committee met on Thursday, December 9th. We had a really great meeting. Dr. Davis was unable to attend, so we got a governor's allocation report from Dr. Gudlock. The governor recently announced a one-time allocation per pupil coming from the federal government in December, and that is separate from aid payments. The Facilities and Finance Committee will be discussing placement of the funds at their upcoming meeting. We also talked a little bit about what's happening with the advocacy around literacy and the audit with HISA. The legislators are still having some discussion around legislation to increase testing, which will actually reduce instructional time. The district is teaming with HISA 6 to review our literacy programs and determine any changes. We also talked a lot about tax information related to vouchers in our tax bill. This has been a goal of the committee for about 3 years now. And there have been more conversations, but tax bills are on their way out already from the city, so it is too late for us to include a communication piece this year. But the long-term plan is to include a short graphical piece that will catch the attention of the audience when the bill is opened. We could place it in the city's utility bill, but for the first time being distributed, we felt like that would not make sense. And again, by doing it next year, we'll be able to create like a website and more information and talking points and just have a more cohesive plan in the tax form. So that is still very much happening, taking a little bit longer than we expected, but it is happening. We also discussed priorities and suggestions for new priorities. We talked about the importance of building relationships and communication with legislators. We would like to see legislators invited to our meetings in classrooms, and we talked about having an outreach day where once a year legislators would be invited to our schools and talk about bills and the district's highest priorities. This could be added to something that is already occurring in the area where legislators are already in attendance. For instance, HISA 6 has the legislative breakfast, so that is also an option. And then we also had a great conversation about mental health and how we want it to continue to be one of our priorities. We talked about possibly having therapy dogs and what it would take to get those done. But what we really decided was the best route to take right now is to invite Mr. Kamimer, Director of People Services, to attend the next meeting to discuss what we're doing and go over our options and resources. And again, we talked about how we would be voting on our mental health days, which passed in February already. So again, the accountability of the transparency of the verification process for schools to validate that students are using the private school vouchers remains a priority, as well as funding. So in conclusion, we said that we were hopeful that WASB will have their day at the Capitol again this year, because that's always a great time to talk to our legislators. It's unclear at the moment whether or not they'll have that, but Barb Herzog will find out and report to our committee by our next meeting.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Our next meeting agenda items, we're going to talk about meeting with more of our local legislators, because that is always a goal, a day at the Capitol. And we're going to get an update on the advocacy around literacy. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, January 27th, pending the ability of Mr. Kamimer to be able to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, policy and governance.
Yes, the Policy and Governance Committee reviewed 24 different Neola policies that are all on our agenda tonight that we'll be voting on. For the sake of time, I'm not going to highlight all 24 of those, but if anyone would like to see them, they can find them on the district's website under our board packet, or also under the Policy and Governance Committee agenda items. I will mention a few that I thought might be most interesting to the public. So one that we updated was food services. We updated it to prohibit stigmatizing students who lack the funds to pay for their meals or have unpaid meal charges. So this will affect people that have negative account balances to make sure that there's inclusion and non-discrimination of students. Student fees, fines, and charges was also updated to identify that no student should be denied participation in any educational opportunity due to their inability to pay for a fee. This was updated in part because of the McKinney-Vento Act, and there were a couple policies that were updated due to that act, actually. Some other changes or updates were to video surveillance and electronic monitoring and conduct in virtual classroom. These both, of course, relate to our e-academy. The conduct in virtual classroom is actually a new policy that we are adopting. There is a policy actually that's recommended for deletion, that is school performance report, because the bulk of that policy is now moved into a different policy, and I personally am always a fan of when we're more concise with our policies and have less, so that they're all kind of together in a way that makes sense. Our home-based private and tribal schooling policy was updated to clarify the options for private school and tribal students to participate in athletic and extracurricular activities. I've always been a fan that we allow home education students and private and tribal students to participate in some of our extracurricular and our specials, like at the elementary level. I really like that policy. One other policy that the public might be interested in is our controversial issues in the classroom policy. There were just a couple technical updates to this about the discussion of controversial, I can't say that word, issues to make sure that they're related to the curriculum when they're brought up in class, and to remind teachers the importance of being a exemplar, maintaining kind of the balance in the classroom and abstain from expressing personal opinions, but also reiterating the importance of having these discussions as it creates critical thinkers who are ready for community, career, and college. I think those were all the ones that I highlighted. We actually had 8 on the agenda that we didn't have time to get to, so we will definitely meet again in January and have discussion of those and several others, I'm guessing. That's
Wonderful.
it.
You guys are busy.
Yeah.
So,
That was a long meeting.
thank you. All of you are busy, so thank you for your efforts. All right. Is there any other type of supplemental board member reports that anyone would like to give at this point?
No.
Dr. Herzog, do you have anything?
Other than to promote the state convention, which I know a number of you have signed up for. That's the convention that involves WASB, as well as the school business officials and the state superintendents, to be held in January. It looks like an exciting conference. Several of the pre-conference workshops deal with improving board efficiency and relationships among board members. So hopefully it'll be I know it will be a good conference. So thank you.
Mr. Kynes?
Yeah, I don't have a report for this one, but Monday we had the Human Growth and Development meeting.
Okay.
So we went through a lot of items on there and just had a good open conversation as to, what we're doing. So
Sure.
let's throw that in there.
All right, thank you. Any other additions?
I was going to give a quick update on the HISA training session that we did. Christopher Carnes and Dr. Herzberg and I did it, but I think I'll save it for the announcements.
Okay.
I think it's more appropriate for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
That works. All right, moving on. We are moving on into our public forum. We have 2 forms of public forum. One is non-agenda related and the other is agenda related. We have, to my knowledge, we have both this evening and some unique forms of that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give out our general statement that we give informing people on how to address the board. So when addressing the board, please clearly state your name and your full address and the topic you wish to address. If you are acting as a spokesperson for a particular group of individuals, please indicate the group that you represent. Please clearly state and concisely the matters of concern. 3, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Number 4, please remember that the use of specific names, district personnel, titles, or identifiable descriptions may lead to legal liability. In such instances, please pursue the district's formal complaint process by contacting the superintendent's office at 424-0160 to be directed to the appropriate administrator. All right, so we begin with non-agenda related public forum. This evening, I'd like to, Dr. Davis is going to begin with a non-agenda related item that was submitted from the public.
All right, so we have several submissions here. So we'll start with Julia Solomon, 1320 Snowden Drive. Julia writes, I would like to congratulate the district in supporting all students in our district. By honoring students' requests to be called by their preferred name and/or pronouns, the district makes a commitment to accept and welcome all students regardless of their gender identity. Being able to bring one's own self, one's genuine self, to an environment like schools or a workplace speaks volumes in support of all students and sends a message that the schools can and should be a welcoming place to all. We know that individuals in our LGBTQ+ community often feel shunned, unwelcomed, and harassed and many struggle with mental health issues because of it. In fact, many LGBTQ plus youth have indicated that this is indeed true. We as a community still have much more to do in terms of acknowledging and learning about the issues that disproportionately affect the LGBTQ plus community. However, the district has taken a step forward to advocate for the inclusion of all students regardless of gender identity, and hope other organizations follow suit. My hope and wish is that the district continues to learn and advocate for an equitable treatment of all students, including but not limiting to our students of color and our LGBTQ plus students. Thank you, Julia.
Hold on, because the next ones are agenda related.
Got it.
So, all right, Dr. Gudlock, is there anyone in the waiting room for non-agenda related public forum?
I'm not sure what they're there for, but there's 3 people in the waiting room, and then we have 4 audio messages. So if you
Okay.
need me to admit, I can start on that.
Sure. Actually, wait, hold on. Hello. Are you able to hear us?
She should be able to hear you.
All right.
Just asked her to
Oh, she's on mute.
Yep.
Alicia, if you could unmute the boards. There we go.
There we go. Good evening, Ms. Johnson. Are you speaking under non-agenda related or agenda related public forum?
I don't know why we're not hearing her.
There's some feedback on her end.
Need your name and address.
Yep. Looks like.
Just want to make sure our
Sure.
speakers are working.
No go? Yeah. I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Ms. Johnson. So,
Maybe-
Can we,
Wait, I almost heard her for a second.
oh, she's muted again.
nope, she's not.
Can we text her a note to say, make sure that she's not muted on her computer? Because if you turn all your volume down, you can't hear anything either. Sometimes I do that.
Are you able to do anything like that? No.
No,
Okay. Here we go.
she's
I will
going to
put
put
my
her
comment in the chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Or you could try texting back to check her volume on the computer too. I do that all the time. It's on. Okay. We just can't hear her.
Yeah.
Can
Okay.
we skip ahead, just jump
Yeah,
around while she's
so
typing?
can we keep her live so that she can create her
Yeah.
comments and then move on to the next person?
Yep, we'll move on
Okay.
to Helen.
Okay.
All right. There we go. Good evening. Can you hear us? Miss Bannon?
She's muted.
Yep. Miss Bannon, it looks like you are muted.
I'm not muted now.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being with us this evening. Can you please provide your full name and your address, please?
Ellen Bannon, 5457 North Bay Ridge Avenue, Milwaukee, 53217.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
Though I now live in Milwaukee, I lived in Oshkosh for 17 years, beginning in 1998, when I became Director of Women's Studies and Associate Professor of History at UW Oshkosh. A history colleague introduced me to Jesse Jack Hooper, who had been active in both the women's suffrage movement, which most people knew, but also in the Indian policy reform movement of the 1920s, which I did my dissertation about. So I was very excited. And I began to research Jessie, and I didn't stop. Over the next decade or two, I read every item in the Jessie Jack Cooper papers in the Wisconsin Historical Society, and as well as her correspondence and manuscripts in archives throughout the country. I probably know more about Jessie than anyone else alive, and she's the first person I want to meet when I get to heaven. Jessie saw herself as an ordinary woman, but her obituary in 1935 was in the New York Times, which is most unusual for a woman who spent her life in a small Wisconsin city. Shortly after she arrived in Oshkosh as a new bride in 1888, she worked in women's clubs to improve her community, a project and a process that she continued throughout her life for many different causes: public health, women's suffrage, as a U.S. Senate candidate against Fighting Bob La Follette, and her final push for world peace, making real contributions in each of these varied spheres. In my opinion, Jessie is a wonderful role model for middle school students. Because of her poor health, her parents kept her out of school, which she regretted all her life, but she became a lifelong learner, learning by doing. She was committed to making the world a better place for all of its inhabitants. And whether she was pushing for zoning to preserve public access to Lake Winnebago or working for world peace, she spoke her mind, but she also listened and learned from others. She was an ordinary woman who did extraordinary things, and I hope she will be honored in her own time, in her own hometown, for all she accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments.
Thank you.
All right. Do we, who else do we have up there, Dr. Gudlock?
We have Kathy.
Oh, yep.
She's coming in now. We'll ask her to unmute.
Oh, hi, Kathy.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yep. Please unmute.
I'm not on mute, am I?
Oh,
No.
you are not.
No.
So, Ms. Prop, thank you for being here this evening. Can you provide us your name and address, please?
Yes, Kathleen Propp, 1936 Hazel Street, Oshkosh, and I'm here on behalf of the Winnebago County League of Women Voters to support the Jessie Jack Cooper Middle School.
Wonderful, thank you. You have 2 minutes.
All right. All three candidates are worthy, and in fact, the league is delighted that parts of the school will bear all three names. Jessie has the strongest Oshkosh connection, living here 47 years. And you've just heard from Helen Bannon about her. She was a suffragist leader with state and national recognition and a peace activist with international recognition. Paul Poberesny brought the EAA to Oshkosh with economic impact and recognition worldwide. Vel Phillips has significant Wisconsin credentials, but I am not aware of her having any Oshkosh connection. The school district's own naming process chose Jessie Jack Cooper, the name with the most votes in the initial open survey. We are asking you to please honor your own process. Whatever your decision, however, produce all three names on this new middle school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right. Sure. You want to read that? Or do you want me to?
Nope, I think I have it.
Okay.
So this is from Alicia Johnson, writing in the chat. Her pronouns are she, her, and hers, and she resides at 1816 North Main Street in Oshkosh. She's here representing herself, and I'm addressing the naming of the new middle school. Jessie Jack Cooper was a tremendous leader for our community and women's suffrage. However, it is widely documented that white women suffragists did not recognize the importance of intersectionality, the complex way that some individuals have to navigate multiple forms of oppression simultaneously. They prioritize their own needs over the needs of all women collectively. One example of racism within the suffragist movement was when Ida B. Wells, an anti-lynching activist, journalist, and black woman, was ordered by a white woman organizers of the 1913 suffrage parade to march at the back of the line. Relegating Belle Phillips to the media center feels similar to Ida B. Wells being told to march in the back of the line. The school board has an opportunity to not make the same mistake that has happened for far too often. That when we talk about the inclusion of women, the subsequent action primarily benefits white women. I am asking you to do the right thing and name the new middle school after Belle Phillips. Representation matters. Let the naming of the middle school after Belle Phillips be a symbolic renewal of OASD's commitment to increasing inclusion and belonging for all their students, not just the white students. Alicia Johnson.
Ms. Johnson, thank you for your comments written. Would have been good to hear your voice, but we got your point loud and clear. So thank you for that. From my understanding, we have no more virtual public comments.
Correct.
Okay. And then we have some audio recording, correct?
Yes, we do.
For agenda.
We have 4 of them.
All right. So, and this is our unique inclusion into this. These are recorded comments from members of our community related to an agenda item. So, Dr. Gudlock, I'm going to let you choose the order.
Okay, I'll just take them in the order they came in.
May I ask a question, please?
Sure.
This is a new process, right?
Hold. Yep.
I'm sorry. This is a new process, right? Did you give them the same 2 minutes and all that kind of stuff? I'm just curious.
I believe that they were knowledgeable of the process of
Okay.
the limits and the guidance that had been communicated to the community from previous meetings. So,
Okay.
but I do not know that for sure.
Okay.
This process actually was put in place way back when we first started
Yes,
COVID.
I remember that.
And
I
we
know-
just left an option that if somebody didn't feel comfortable writing their comments and would like the
Sure.
audio record,
Right.
we captured that for them.
Yep.
So her question is that, is it within the 2 minute?
It should be, yes.
So they have
Some of
the
them were
same-
shorter.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank
Proceed.
you.
There we go.
My name is Wilka Sabua, and my address is 1776 Graber Street, and I am in the 2nd grade at Elmeline Cook, and I voted for the name for the new middle school to be Val Phillips because Val Phillips is an African American, and my family is African American, and we're here too.
There's the first one.
All right.
Hello, my name is Wilka Sabua. My address is 1776 Graver Street. I'm in 5th grade at Tipler Alps. I wanted to tell you that I want you to select Val Phillips as the name for the new middle school. First of all, this is your once in a never chance to have an African American woman as a name of a school in this district. Let's add another first to Miss Phillips' accomplishments. Besides, when I look around at the school names in my town, I mostly see a bunch of men that look all the same. This is the chance to do something different. Second, and most of all, I feel like selecting Val Phillips will help kids like me be seen.
That was your second one. Third.
My name is Moshe Suburwa. My address is 1776 Graber Street, Oshkosh. I currently serve on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committees at the city and at the school district, but I'm here tonight as a parent. A black parent of black sons that attend schools here in Oshkosh and never see themselves reflected in positive or meaningful ways. They don't see black teachers in their classrooms or their principals' offices. They don't see themselves on Oshkosh Area School District School Board, the City of Oshkosh Common Council, or the Winnebago Board of Supervisors. Everywhere they look in official spaces, they are absent, erased, invisible. I'm here today to ask you to make their experiences visible, validated, and represented. I'm asking you to reconsider the recommendations you've been given and instead choose to name the new middle school after Val Phillips. Representations matter, and this is simple, free, and admittedly symbolic move to demonstrate that the district sees them and that the district might actually be committed to the harder, deeper equity work that still needs to be done. After hearing a lot about the district's desire to do equity work over the last year, I find it frustrating that something this small will likely not even be possible. And if by some chance or miracle it is made possible, it's still frustrating that it takes this amount of organizing and mobilizing to get you to do the right thing. I know some of you may still be stuck on splitting the votes based on your surveys, but when I look at those surveys, I don't see community speaking. I don't see consensus. If the surveys had leaned overwhelmingly in one direction or another, it is arguably your responsibility to listen to the community. But that's not what happened here. The community didn't speak with a clear voice on this. There is no consensus. In the absence of consensus, your responsibility is to lead this community forward. While selecting to name the middle school after Val Phillips will not get us to a more equitable district, it can at least show that the district understands that representation matters and that our kids need to be seen. With this, I thank you.
And the fourth one.
Hello, my name is Angela Grace Sabua, and my address is 1776 Grader Street. I'm here this evening to ask that you reconsider the recommendation concerning the naming of the new middle school. I'm asking that you instead name the new middle school after Val Phillips. There are so many reasons for this ask, more than I can summarize in a few minutes, and many that I would have hoped you could have recognized yourselves, but you did not. First are all the firsts. While I certainly don't have time to go through the enormous list of firsts that Val Phillips achieved, I can go through just a few. The first Black woman to graduate from UW-Madison Law School, the first African-American elected to Milwaukee Common Council, the first woman elected to that same council, the first Black judge in Wisconsin, the first woman elected to statewide office in Wisconsin, the first African-American elected to statewide office in Wisconsin. Val Phillips led this state and broke barriers in all the spaces she entered. Those alone are deserving of this honor and recognition. But if I'm being honest, it's about much more than Val Phillips' achievements. It's also about inspiring all of the kids in this district to be the firsts in their areas of a passion. It's about motivating them to take risks, to work on behalf of others. And most importantly, it's about widening the scope of the kinds of people that kids in our districts learn about as leaders and are positioned as role models. As it is now, there's Jefferson, Franklin, Roosevelt, Carl Traeger, George Reed, Jacob Shapiro, Webster Stanley, James Merrill, Perry Tipler. Notice a pattern? I noticed several. In fact, unless I missed something, I think only one school in this district is named after a woman. And none are named after people that look like my kids, or 30% of the kids in the district. Over the last year, I've sat through a series of community discussions with the school district, the Equity Ally Academy, and in each of those sessions, the district has asked us to be allies to the equity work that it's doing. But I struggle with this when I see such a simple opportunity to lead being missed. This seems like low-hanging fruit, and yet I'm watching as you let this moment pass you by. If this simple thing is too difficult, I have very little optimism about the district's ability to tackle the really difficult stuff. Naming can serve a powerfully important educational purpose. It can communicate what we want as visible and enduring symbols in our community. I know there's been some discussion about wanting to name the school after someone with, quote, community connections, and I would like to challenge you all to expand your definition of community, or our community here in Oshkosh, and in doing so, expand our students' understanding of how big or small their community can be. If you're serious about seeing and validating and recognizing all students in the district, that begins with a recognition The community extends beyond our district boundaries. It extends to the Democratic Republic of Congo, to Afghanistan, to Laos, and back again. And it certainly extends to the state of Wisconsin. And I hope it extends to the legacy of Val Phillips.
And that is the fourth one.
All right. Dr. Davis?
Okay, we also have a email from Kirsten Bleckel-Carls from 2314 Shore Preserve. Please name the, she writes, please name the middle school after Val Phillips. My 4-year-old son needs a win, needs to know he matters. The people who look like him matter and have made a difference and deserve to have their names displayed proudly. There aren't many places in this city where you could say that voices from people like him have been celebrated. Val Phillips is a forward-moving choice, not the status quo. Please share and consider my comment. As a parent who chooses not to send my kids to OASD, even though we are assigned to OASD schools and are a part of this community, I may reconsider if inclusive representation steps are taken and voices are heard. Thank you. Second one comes from Carol Gilbert, 1530 Jefferson Street. I request the board reconsider the naming of the new middle school to Val Phillips. Doing so would show our children and our citizens that equity can be found in our community. Please, we need to start. And last one comes from Eliza Farrow from 910 Wagoo Avenue. I graduated from OASD in 2008. It is important that we take a step forward for our communities of color and our girls and women by naming our new middle school after Val Phillips. Representation matters, and this would show our young women scholars and our scholars of color that they matter and give them a role model to look up to. I certify that I am the individual named in the above public forum, and understand that my comments will be read aloud and played at the OASD Board of Education meeting, and understand that these rights are reserved.
Thank you. And Mr. Gudlock, we're clear of any other comments? All right, thank you. That closes a very spirited, non-agenda and agenda-related public forum.
Mr. Peschel?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that I said that that was a new process, and it's not. We have had this for a long time, so I just wanted for the greater good to let people know. I think this is just the first time that somebody has sent us a recorded message, correct?
I believe that's accurate. I don't recall.
So I just
audio
wanted to point
recordings.
out that this has been here all along for the record.
All right, thank you for the clarification. All right, next we are on to the consent resolution agenda with nothing being pulled earlier in the meeting. I'm going to just read for the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or as discussed in a previous meeting. These items will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. I would entertain a motion to move.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Carnes, seconded by Herzog. Please call the roll.
Carlin?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Peschel?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. We are going to move on to resolution number 13. It reads, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the retirement as filed with the secretary to the Board of Education. Looking for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Herzog, seconded by Carlin. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please call the roll.
Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Peschel?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
Ayes have it, resolution carries.
All right, thank you. All right, next up is Resolution 14. This is the resolution for the new middle school STEM lab name and media center name. Shall I read the whole thing? Yes? Okay. Resolution number 14 reads, "Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the naming of the new middle school, Jesse Jack Hooper Middle School, and be it further resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the naming of the new middle school Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math Lab, better known as STEAM, for the Paul Poberezny STEAM Lab. And be it further resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the naming of the middle school center, the new middle school center, Val Phillips Media Center." Looking for a motion and a second.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Herzog, seconded by Wright. We are open for discussion. I'm going to do one kind of logistics element here. Our policy, what number is that policy?
That is 7250.
Policy 7250 indicates that the naming of facilities or parts of facilities takes a 2/3 majority vote. So that means that in order for this to move forward in any capacity, we would have to have 5 yes votes for this. Is that, any questions related to that?
No.
Okay. All right. We are open for general discussion. Go ahead, Ms. Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Peschel. We received a lot of emails today asking about the stakeholder group, and I copied Dr. Davis on one of the questions. So my question is to Dr. Davis. Can you please review the process a little bit more and who the individual stakeholders were that provided input and whatnot?
Yeah, so we had a broad range of stakeholders in 2 rounds of surveys. So we included students that were directly involved, in the path, if you will, of these schools that were affected. Also did a community-wide email, if you will, to be able to get community stakeholders, parents, and then staff. So we had representation from each one of those areas, and quite a broad sample of them. Again, in 2 rounds. Our first round was really to be able to gather names, and then we finalized that down to 3 names selected, and the committee then decided to go out with the top 3 names. So with Paul Poberezny, Val Phillips, and Jesse Jack Hooper, to do a second round of voting. And so in your packet is the results from that.
Mm-hmm. And for the greater good, can you tell us how many surveys we reviewed? I know it's in here, but I just want anyone watching to know how many participated.
Yes, so I just want to make sure that I have it correct for the total. So we had total responses for our, let's see, question 1, we had 4,233. That's what we had for total responses.
Okay. And then when it was narrowed down to 900 votes and 800 votes with the stakeholders, is that correct? Was that a second part of the process?
Yes, yep. So we had, that was part of the second voting.
Yeah.
So if we look at just the overall total, so I can just go through that, maybe just to give people some clarity on that. So when you would look at just the overall total, then you would have the new middle school. So Jesse Jack Hooper received 1457, Paul Poberezny 1532, and Val Phillips 1244. A closer look from responses from the Oshkosh Area School District students and parents had Jesse Jack Hooper with 956. Paul Poberezny at 900, and Val Phillips at 815. And responses from OASD students, parents, and then when you include staff members, then we had Jesse Jack Hooper at 1,097, Paul Poberezny at 1,054, and Val Phillips at 1,008. So certainly close, and a broad range of representation of constituents. So we thank everybody for participating in that process, and I think we certainly had 3 worthy people.
Thank you. I just wanted a summary of the process for people that are watching in case they haven't been up to speed on this. So thank you for reporting that.
You're welcome.
Dr. Herzog.
As the chair of that committee, I just wanted to add a couple of thoughts. One is that when the initial survey came back, Jesse Jack Hooper was the overall leader. That was from a survey that did not provide any names for people. It was totally open-ended, and anyone could submit any name that they wanted, and there was a wide range of people both living and no longer living. In addition to that, we felt that we should go back to the community. We felt that the numbers were fairly close in that first survey, and we wanted more input. So that was promoted through our students and staff, and also in the larger community. I believe some of the media outlets, the Examiner, the Herald, the Northwestern, I believe, all provided opportunities for people to vote. Once again, when we met in that special meeting at the end of November, which I described earlier, the totals were close. And I believe the sense in the committee, and my fellow committee members are certainly able to speak for themselves, but I think we felt those were all viable options. And to me, it showed leadership on the part of the board to deviate from the way typically schools have been named in the past, where a school has a name period, and then no other part of the school is given a name. There was a sense with the committee that we did want to name it after a person, and so that's how we proceeded. But again, the notion of the mascot, which in all probability would be tied to whatever name was chosen, we felt was a decision that should be left to the students and the staff, and I believe that's how it was when Carl Traeger School was built many years ago. I think the naming committee, of which I was a part at that time, decided that the mascot belonged to the school and not to the school board. So there's plenty of data that Dr. Davis has presented us with. Our board policies are replete with examples of our striving to be a district that is data-driven, and I do appreciate all the people who have weighed in on this topic. It certainly has stirred many emotions, and I understand that, but I also think it's difficult to turn our back on data moving forward, so that's all I have to say.
So, Dr. Davis, I have a question, and it was kind of presented to us by a community member this morning in an email that was driven around the idea that, is this a decision that we need to make now? You know, a couple people have asked us to reconsider making that decision.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'd like if you could provide a response or rationale as to why it's important to make this decision.
Yeah, it's important to make it now as we complete the design process for our new middle school. So that's an important process as we're working on bids, and we've got a lot of naming and signage that we would need to include as part of that process. We also think it's important, just as we're continuing to kind of strive to the identity of what that school is going to be moving forward, to be able to have it not just be New Northside Middle School, to have it, be able to have a identity, if you will. And so we'll certainly, as Dr. Herzog had mentioned, we'll have to work the mascot process off of that, and that also works into part of that identity and naming and that we'll have to do for the process.
Good, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Salaji.
Yes, so I have a question. We also will be building a new elementary school on that side of town that, like the middle school, combines a couple different schools. Will we go through the same process with the elementary school? Or are we planning on keeping the name the same? Maybe we don't have an answer for that now, which is okay if you don't. But
Yeah, no, I think that's something that we would discuss, at a later time. I don't have an answer for that right now. I'd want to get the feel for what the Facilities and Finance Committee would think, and I think do some reflection on our process would be important.
that's why it came up for me, is because I'm realizing how important it is for our students and our families to see representation and to have a school named after someone who is not white. And I think that argument is very valid, and I appreciated the emails that we received and the comments we heard tonight. So I wondered if there was a way to kind of make that a part of the discussion too, with moving forward with the naming of other buildings, how that might work.
Sure.
Just to kind of go off of that, I mean, and to kind of build off of Dr. Herzog's comments about using data and using information that's been collected from our community. I think I also agree that it's really important that our students, all of our students, be as represented as possible within the school district. And I think is there a pathway, if we were to modify this tonight, to name one facility for one person and preemptively name another facility that we're going to make in the next 3 years for one of those other names?
So I would say that would be a board discussion. I would defer to the board for that discussion. Certainly you can make any amendments on the resolution as it stands. I guess the perspective that I would provide would be that the committee spent a lot of time being able to work through this process, and I think providing the committee an opportunity to do some reflection maybe a wise way to go, to be able to get some perspective from the committee and have the committee report back on that. But certainly that's up to the board for possible discussion.
Sure. Okay.
I heard some feedback that some people who were involved in the process were not aware that Val Phillips was a person of color, and that if they had known that, that might have swayed their vote a little bit. So
Sure.
I'm not sure how many people that is or not, or if it's relevant, or I'm
Okay.
just sharing.
Thank you. I'm going to go with Mr. Wright first and then come back to you, Dr. Herzog.
Just to add to our committee process, there were 3 very solid candidates. The committee wanted to ensure that there were Oshkosh ties, and we also wanted to use the data. And through a very lengthy discussion, because we had 3 very good viable candidates, a solution was reached to honor each of those candidates within the new school. And we felt that that was a very positive thing, so that everyone, all 3 of those individuals could be recognized, by our community within the school. So I look at that as a positive thing for the community. Rather than recognizing one individual for these reasons, we're able to recognize all of them. So I just wanted to, and there was a lot of thought that went into that, and a lot of discussion. And the comments that we heard tonight are very relevant, and it would be nice in the future for Oshkosh to have more representation on all of our schools that match how our community is changing. This school, the plan being put forward, does represent a lot of different, prideful things, great accomplishments of these individuals in different areas. And I think that as a board, that needs to be taken into perspective too. I've had a lot of leaders of our different leaders, of our equity, quality committees, and different people within those inclusion committees think that both Jesse Jack Hooper and Val Phillips are, really good symbols, of what they're working towards. So those are my comments, and I do support what the conclusion that we reached within the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Herzog?
I was just going to make 2 clarifications. One, the staff report notes under section D, a brief thumbnail description of each individual. I believe those were what went out to the community, and it does clearly define that Val Phillips was an African American. I think she's a wonderful role model. Unfortunately, she didn't garner the top votes among student, staff, and the business community. Also, there was a statement made that we have 40% of students of color in the district. Dr. Davis was kind enough to give me the data that comes from the DPI off the 2020-2021 report card. I questioned that because I thought that number was a little bit high. According to this DPI report, we have 73.9% white students, 6.2% Hispanic students, 6.6% Black or African American students, and 7.6% Asian students. So the number is closer to 26.1% than it is to 40%, just to clarify.
Mr. Peschel?
Yes.
So all three of these amazing people are worthy of a school name, no doubt. And I'm wondering, my question to you is, if we give Val Phillips the name of the gymnasium and give the other, whatever we're giving to Paul Pabarenzi, does that mean we could never name a future school after them? Because we do have a facilities plan that has us building more new schools in the future. And so I guess I'm kind of asking if we would want to save that name for maybe our next high school, or maybe, or not high school, sorry, our next
Sure.
school. And could the school board make a decision that said, you know, this, we will make, is it too early to make a name for another school, or?
Well, and I think that's kind of the same, you're asking kind of a different question than what I asked Dr. Davis.
Okay.
Which Dr. Davis's response to mine was that we should put that back to a greater committee outlook in regards to the naming of the next facility.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking a question about whether we can amend what we have here.
Correct.
To not include the naming of other areas of the school, but just to name the school. That's how I understood your comments.
That is what I was thinking, because if we use these other two names for other things, would we use them for a school later on?
Sure, and I guess generally I want to put that response to Dr. Davis to be able to respond to that.
Yeah, so again, I would say that I think taking it back to committee, I think would be an important consideration. I think it's important though to note that in this case, Jessie Jack Hooper would have already set that precedent because she has the auditorium from Oshkosh North named after her as part of that process of naming North High. So she would have a section of a school named after her and a school if the resolution were to go through. So I would say, you know, we would have that to kind of fall back on some flexibility.
Sure.
Okay. That's great.
So I guess to ask the clarifying question, I don't know if there's anything that exists in policy. There's nothing that would suggest that we can't name a school and a section of a school for the same person.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
I believe that's true.
Okay. Ms. Wyman.
I think it would be very difficult for us to say we're going to name the next school this. I don't think that's up to us. That's for the board that's sitting here at the time that the school is named. So I would not be in agreement with that.
Okay. So let's just be clear before we get ahead of ourselves. There's nothing on the table that suggests any of that, and there's no amendment that has been put forward to suggest those actions. So I just want us to kind of keep us on the task of what's here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess in general, is there any other comments, general comments that anyone wants to make? Because right now we've been having a general discussion about all of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Carnes?
Yeah. All right. I first want to thank Dr. Herzog, Ms. Wyman, and Mr. Wright for allowing me to participate in that Facility and Finance Committee meeting. I went to both of them virtually. And they asked my thoughts, and I shared mine, and it was really interesting to see the process and how that worked. Saying that, I'm going to be honest, I believe we are missing an incredible opportunity if we decide to name this school for someone other than Val Phillips. We have an opportunity to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. We are a district that is behind in our diversity work, but we have started doing it and prioritizing it. This is an opportunity to tell that public what that means, who we want to be. Monday, December 6th was the fourth and final equity meeting for our community. The week before, we had a diversity group meeting. That group came out of a desire from our community. Sorry, I lost my spot. For greater representation. Over a year and a half ago, we had a group of Oshkosh High School graduates who asked for greater diversity within their education to make sure our students learned things that they weren't taught. Our district is committed to diversity on all levels. We want our students challenged so they are college, career, and community ready. The principal of this new school, Principal Christy Levy, spoke multiple times at our facility and finance committee meetings about importance of giving kids the opportunity to see what is possible for themselves. We live in a community that's not always been diverse, so a list of white candidates will always outweigh other options. But that shouldn't stop us from naming this school for Val Phillips. While she might not have been from Oshkosh, she is from Wisconsin, represents a lot of the values we want to teach our kids. While it is important to take into consideration the public input, the surveys were always meant to be a guide, and for us sitting at this table to make the right determination for our district and what we want to be going forward. We are the elected representatives for the taxpayers, the students, the parents, and everyone else in our district. There are many ways we can take this data and how we can break it down. And we are also limited from that data to understand what it means, where it came from, which populations were able to vote. The one area that jumped out to me was the fact that almost 40% of the staff chose Val Phillips. That's a pretty powerful statement from the people who are in the classrooms with our kids and know what it is they need to see. I spoke with Principal Levy about that issue, and she, along with myself, feel it was a really strong message from the staff as to what we need to do. We need to give the kids an opportunity to see a school named for someone that looks like them. Empathy is really important to me. I feel the staff embodied that message when they chose a candidate who is black. This area of our city is also the most diverse area we have. If not here, where? And if not now, when? Let me also be clear that doesn't mean the other candidates weren't qualified. But this is what message are we going to send and who we want to be. This is an opportunity that shouldn't be delayed for the next school or the next school or the following school. Our district, as Dr. Herzog mentioned, we're 74% white. Our teachers are 98% white. Our buildings are 100% white. We have 20 schools in this district with 12 named for people. Many of them have never set foot in Oshkosh. All 12 of them, as I said, named for white people. Only one of them was named for a woman. Val Phillips is deserving, and I'm closing up here. Val Phillips is deserving of having this school named for her. We need to show all our residents what we stand for and who we will be. If we are committed to all students, which is what we claim to be, then we only have one option. People need representation. People deserve representation. We don't just represent certain groups. We represent the entire community, the entire student body. We can do something never before done in the city. We have the ability to show all residents that we can make change, make a difference, because it's the right thing to do. This is such an incredibly important moment in our city. Why wait to pass this along for the next school naming process? The moment is now. We need to do this for our students and for our community. This is a decision that will reverberate around Oshkosh for 100 years. It also allows us to set the stage for the next generation and the generation after that. I ask again, if not now, then when? Like I said before, the polls were there to guide us. It is up to us, as our community's elected representatives, to make the right decision for our community. We have an opportunity many of us sitting at this table will never get again. Name the school for Val Phillips. Show students who they can be. Allow them to dream and see what's possible. I will say this. My next thing is I am going to make a motion for an amendment to this. And if it is seconded, it opens up conversation as to what we want to do further. So, saying that, I am offering an amendment to the resolution. I would like to change the name to Val Phillips. Keep Poberezny in the STEAM area and name the Media Center for Jesse Jack Hooper. I would appreciate a second to allow us to continue this conversation further. Seconding it does not bring us to a vote immediately, but at least we can talk about that amendment and allow us to see if we want to make a vote on that. So thank you all for listening.
All right.
So I move to change the name, as I said.
Okay.
I will second it,
Okay.
so we can have a discussion.
Amendment was moved by Carnes and seconded by Carlin. Just to make sure that the amendment is understood, the requested amendment is to name the new middle school for Val Phillips, keep Mr. Poberezny as being named for the STEAM lab, and naming the media center for Jesse Jack Hooper, sorry. So we are open for discussion.
And,
Hold on.
oh, sorry.
Hold on. Ms. Szilagyi and
Yeah.
then Ms. Carlin.
So I have a question. You mentioned that 40% of the staff supported Vella Phillips,
Yes.
which would suggest a majority. Do we know the students, what the majority of the students supported?
Majority of the students, I believe, was Jesse Jack Hooper, I believe.
Yes.
But I can.
And the
we can-
public was actually
we can
Paul.
get that.
I'm not going to say his last name right either.
Dave, can
So
you
the
look that
staff,
up?
the students, and the public were all
So,
different on who they
When
supported.
filtered for students.
Mostly Jesse Jack.
Jesse Jack Cooper was 508 votes, Paul Poperesny was 386, and Val Phillips was 466.
Okay. Thank you.
That was just students.
So that one went Jesse Jack, Val Phillips, and then Paul.
Correct.
Okay. And the public went Paul, Jesse Jack, Val, and staff went Val. Oh, geez, yeah. All right, thank you.
All right. Ms. Carlin and then Ms. Wyman.
I seconded this because I did want to have a conversation about it. And at the same time, I really think it's important to respect all the hard work that the committees have been doing to come up with this. And we have put out a lot of surveys. And to Ms. Wyman's point, saying that the school board shouldn't decide a name for the future, I agree with that 100%. But I actually also believe that the school board should never really be deciding the name of a school. I think that that's our community's job. That's our parents, that's our students. We take input from them, of course, and we vote on the final decision. But I'm torn with this one because there has been a lot of hard work. There's been a lot of data. And it's been, this has been going on for several months, right? So, yeah, I'm willing to have the conversation, but ultimately, I believe that we should honor the hard work that's been done. And knowing that we could name a building after Val Phillips, and there is precedent for having an auditorium named after someone else and then named for a school again, makes me a little bit more comfortable with the committee's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Wyman.
Thank you. The reason that an Oshkosh person or person that has made an impact in Oshkosh is so important to me is because many times after graduation we talk about brain drain. We have so many talented people in this community, and we have so many schools that are Washington, Jeffersons, and as you said, never step foot in Oshkosh. Coming back to Oshkosh, raising a family in Oshkosh, having children that return to Oshkosh, I understand the importance of further educating our Oshkosh students, and to have them return is an absolute gift because they want to be here, to recognize their achievements and the achievements of those people in Oshkosh, to serve as mentors for those people that return here. And there are many examples of that. To me, is critically important to continue to educate, show mentors. I'm sorry this has become a black-white issue because to me it's an Oshkosh issue. And that makes me sad, I guess, because to me this is all about Oshkosh and about Oshkosh schools and a future of education in Oshkosh.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate that, Ms. Wyman. I agree. It's the future of Oshkosh. But it's also what we want to be, where we're going. We are becoming more diverse, and so much of it is reactive. And this is somewhat could be seen as maybe being more proactive. We started the diversity work in the last couple of years. This is the next step on that. I think you heard some people talking about that this is an opportunity. Where we are currently, we are still majority white. If it's black and white, but it's also representation. So it's not necessarily color, it's representation, people looking like you. Teachers are obviously we want qualified teachers, but the representation isn't there. So it's something greater than just black and white. It's what we want to be and where we're going. We're only going to get more diverse. It's only going to be there. So giving kids that aren't here yet the opportunity to dream and to see something. I think that's where I'm coming from. I think it's a powerful opportunity that who knows what the next committee does? Who knows who's on it? We got elections coming up. We don't know. We don't know what that would look like. But Val Phillips is right here. And in the first survey, she was really close. I mean, she was second, and I think it was Hooper Phillips, and they were easily 1-2. So, I mean, it's not like it's a jump to put Val Phillips on this building. And so like I said, we are elected to make these, as much as it may not have to be, it shouldn't be, we are elected to make this decision. And we have to look at a lot of different input. It's not just the one item that we get to, are they here, are they there, and for me, it's an opportunity.
I think it's an opportunity to honor all of them. Let's look at all their resumes, what they all did. All three of them are being honored in this new school, maybe in different places in different ways, but they certainly are. So I think we can't lose sight of the fact that we are doing that, with this recommendation.
I think I understand that, but Jesse Jack Hooper is named in the auditorium at Oshkosh North, and my guess is most people in the city don't know that. So named for another part of a building is not going to get well known. It's not going to get the same traction as that name on the outside.
That might be true.
I appreciate the, trying to keep everybody involved in that, and that was a great suggestion. But
So, I struggle with this one.
Me too.
And I want to be absolutely honest with it. I think it's one of these times where it's a great issue to have, right? We have some very qualified people that we definitely want to be naming some of our facilities for, not just a certain room, but buildings for. I mean, our community told us that these were three individuals, whether or not they're from Oshkosh, but also from Oshkosh, that have had an impact on people of our community, the Oshkosh school education community. So, I take into account the work that the committee has done, the work that the community has done as well. But there's a side of me that says that sometimes our community holds back from where we could be. Call that Oshkosh is a conservative community sometimes. And I know this, I'm born and raised here, so it's nothing new to me, right? So, but at the same time, I think we have opportunities to do something different this time. And so, and again, I appreciate all the work that the community has done in it, but sometimes we as elected leaders need to lead in that charge. And so, I think I'm prone to agree with the amendment for this. If it does not pass, we go back to it again, and we can talk about it, and we can work to work with what we have here. Mm-hmm. We also don't have to make this decision today. We can put it back to committee to entertain, more conversation about the naming of our facilities. So I would agree with Mr. Carnes. Before I had children in the district, I went into the North Auditorium once, and it was to see, I think it was Old Town, an old Arthur Miller play. I didn't know that it was named for Jesse Jack Hooper. I didn't know it as the Hooper Auditorium. And so the reality is that if we're going to use people that we know and respect in our community, we want their names to be front and center. And so though I agree with the consensus method that was taken here to take into account all of that, I'd really like to see all of their names on schools.
Me too, yeah.
Because I think it's going to send a much stronger message from that. And so I think the spot that we as leaders have to do is to make the tough choice of who do we out of those three really feel should that building be named for. So those are my comments on that. Ms. Carlin?
I agree that with everything that's been said. We are elected officials, and so therefore we are elected to support what the community desires, if we agree with it, correct? But we take direction from the community and the teachers and the staff, and we listen to them. And that's what's kind of happened here with this process and whatnot. I have a quick question because I am also torn for Mr. Carnes. And my question is, do you think that this process was effective in surveying some of the folks that reached out to us today? Were they involved in the process and whatnot? I guess I'm just looking for feedback and your perspective of if you think that the survey was big enough. And I'm kind of confused why we got all of these emails today when we've been doing this for months and we've been talking about it for months, you know?
Being at the Facilities and Finance Committee meeting, I got to see what went into that. And I think the first one we had, was it 4,400 respondents? And how many?
I'm afraid I don't remember that.
I think that's what Dr. Gudlock had said earlier. Does that sound right? We have a community that's a lot larger than that. You know, so we had 12,000 people vote at the last school board election in April. So roughly a third of those people voted. So it's not like it's a huge amount of representation. But we don't know where that representation came from. Students could have been from Traeger, could have been from Oakwood, could have been, they just got classified as students.
Right.
And so we don't know, did the areas with low, not access to Wi-Fi, did they have the opportunity to vote? Where did the votes come from? Do we have, from zip codes, from areas? We don't have the data. So it is, as it was always meant to be, a guide. And at the end of it, nobody jumped out. But I was shocked being there the first time that the top two, and I don't remember the numbers, but it seemed to be pretty out there. It was Hooper and Phillips. And that was interesting to me, and I'll say, Jesse Jack Hooper is an amazing choice.
I don't remember it that way either. To speak to if I may, to speak to the process. No process of gathering information in a situation like this is going to be perfect. But the committee, within our discussions, did make it an emphasis to try to reach as many people as possible. I mean, we had people on radio station, Principal Levy went on a radio station to promote participation in this process. So as far as that piece of the process, we tried to do everything we could to get as much input as we possibly could, just to speak to that part of the process.
Yeah.
Is it a perfect process? Probably not. What process is?
And that's what it is. It's just, we just have to understand what it means, right? And from that standpoint, absolutely, it was out there. It was broadcast. I still know people that didn't vote. They didn't hear about it. How seemed to be out there, and we talked about it at our last meeting as well, and stuff.
We tried. We did the best we could. It's a difficult. People might think naming a school is an easy process. I can assure you it is not. Especially it is not when you get multiple good candidates coming forward that have done really great things, right? Like they all have. So, and we certainly didn't, at least I personally didn't want to slight any individual in any way. You know, that was a top vote getter. So we were trying to be cognizant of that, and trying to make a good, it was a tough, difficult decision within the committee. It really was. It was one of those decisions you walk out of there and you think about, and it's tough on you, right? So just to speak to that part of the process, I just wanted to provide a little more information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No? All right, I'm going to read the, what I believe the amendment is one more time, and then we will go into vote on the amendment. Okay? So the amendment would replace Jesse Jack Hooper with Val Phillips. Would be called Val Phillips Middle School. Paul Poborezny would remain the Paul Poborezny STEAM Lab. And finally, the Media Center would become Jesse Jack Hooper Media Center. Are we clear on what the amendment is and what everyone will be voting on?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any last comments?
And
All right.
then we go back to the original vote?
Yeah, if
If
this,
this doesn't
so
pass,
good question. If this passes, what I just stated becomes the resolution. If it fails, we go back to discussing the original resolution.
And I think just also for just a point of clarity, that this amendment would take a majority vote,
It would,
and the actual naming would be the supermajority. Is that accurate?
According to policy 7250, you have to have a 2/3 vote for naming. So if the amendment is proposed as that would be the name, then you'd have to have 5 votes.
I guess I would disagree with that, Dr. Herzog, because the amendment doesn't create the official name of the facility. All it does is change the wording of the resolution. And then if that happens, the board takes that final vote, which becomes the naming of the facility. So
I don't read it that way, but you're the board president. It's your call, right or wrong.
So, I mean, that's my understanding, is that it's a simple majority to change the wording of a resolution.
And then we'd still need the supermajority to actually
Correct.
have it pass.
So then you're saying if that, excuse me, just so I'm clear on what you're
Go
saying.
back to the original.
So you're saying the amendment only requires 4 votes to pass, but then we'd have to vote a second time and have 5 votes? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Any other points of clarification or points of order that anyone would like to discuss before we move forward? Okay. Before we go that, I want to acknowledge that this decision is a challenging but fulfilling decision to make, whether we're voting on an amendment or voting on the actual name of the school and the types of facilities within all of that. And I want to acknowledge the moments and the times that all of you have taken in getting us to this point. So here's a different world than what the community looks at us in regards to this, right? So just know that all the work that everyone has put into this is good work. So no matter what direction we go in tonight with that. So don't feel stressed by this. We're all leaders, right?
Call the question.
All right, please call the roll.
Carnes?
Aye.
Peschel?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
Wright?
No.
Wyman?
No?
Carlin?
Aye.
Herzog?
No.
4 ayes, 3 noes. So we go to the next vote?
Correct. All right, we are open for discussion on the amended resolution. Any comments?
What is the
The
amendment?
amendment failed.
The
No,
amendment.
No, it
the amendment
passed.
passed.
Oh, the amendment passed.
The amendment passed 4-3.
Yep, got it.
So the amendment now reads,
Yep.
the resolution now reads that that the school will be named for Val Phillips. Pulveresny will be named for the STEAM lab, and Jack Cooper will be named for the media center. All right, discussions about that. Go ahead, Dr. Herzog.
We've seen a lot over the last year and a half over questioning of elections. And while the voting on these surveys was advisory and not compulsory, I'm wondering if people will see this change as you keep voting until you get it a certain way. There are a lot of issues to me beyond the name. I also see this as a major governance issue for this board. So I'm quite torn on this tonight.
I agree with you. It feels like a governance issue because I want to respect the work the committee has done. I want to honor the data that you used. I know what pulls me is knowing that our staff supported Bill Phillips and then hearing from our students and our families that are not white, hearing how important that is for them. But I agree too with what you're saying, Dr. Herzog, that it's difficult to not honor the data or to have a divide in our board. I don't know that we've had one with this new board yet. This is our first one. I did not know that naming schools was going to be so complicated.
Well, we serve at our constituents, and they elect us to represent them, and they have said that they wanted it. We have voted, it's been a process, and it's kind of unprecedented for us to go against something like this and change the recommendation. On the other hand, I'd like to thank Mr. Peschel and Mr. Carnes for pointing out that there are sometimes opportunities where we do have an opportunity to do something a little bit bold, and perhaps this is one of them. I'm still mulling it over. But I would like to thank my board for this conversation. I think that this is a really important conversation, and I appreciate that we had it.
Can I add something?
You may.
The one thing that really stood out to me when we were doing our facility and finance meeting was Principal Levy on 3 occasions during that last meeting was very clear with what she thought that building needed and what her students needed. And she wanted the opportunity to be able to have them see something different. And if anything stood out to me at all, that was the biggest piece. And she was very, very clear. And I asked her a 4th time during that when we offered the resolution or when the discussion was to switch it, to go to Hooper and then name the different parts. And she did not give an answer, and she kind of deferred because I think she had already said her piece. And so I understand that 3 of us have been on here for less than a year, that this is controversial. I actually was excited for tonight because I want to have these conversations. I don't want us all to sit here and agree on everything because we do represent the community, and we have an opportunity to do something. And I don't want to be one of those people who's making decisions because you hope to get reelected. I'm making decisions for what I was elected to be here for. And this is that moment. And I'm very thankful to all of you to have these conversations and to be respectful of each other. But we need one more vote to get that to pass to be Val Phillips' school. And I hope we can.
Whenever I have a tough decision like this, I think of the only thing that really matters in this role, and that is what is best for students. That is why we are all here. What is best for students? And what is best for the students at Merrill Middle School for the name? I'm throwing that out there. I'm not answering the question.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Just one. It's interesting. I really, looking at the non-data, I was pushing for Paul Poperesny because I think so many of our schools are named after old people. And I was looking for someone more current, someone that the community would remember, someone that the community could understand what put Oshkosh on the map. So, you know, there's all these different ways to look at it, but if there's someone that has made Oshkosh economically successful for at least 10 days out of the year, is Paul Poperesny and what he has done for EAA. So I'm going in all different directions too, but I come back to Oshkosh. And Paul would have been my choice because of the relevance of what he has done most recently. So I'm going in a little different direction with school naming that people will be able to remember for the next 100 years instead of, you know, the 100 years before. So that's...
Sure.
Thank you for sharing that.
And Beth and I originally both wanted Paul, and then we came to a solution that we thought, you know, everyone on the board could get behind and accept. And that was kind of, I'll sum that up as that's kind of the process we went through in facilities and finance. Because the board has to get 5 votes to adopt anything. And, you know, that was part of the process. Okay, what can be, what could pass through the board where we can, you know, how can we get the board to get on board with the entire board on board with the naming decision, you know? So.
I appreciate that you did that, and now I feel a little guilty that it.
I like
Still
Oshkosh.
messy.
You know?
Can I ask?
You sure?
There's a lot to think about before the next vote. Is it possible to make a motion to have a recess for 2-3 minutes to just kind of breathe for a moment before we do the last vote on it?
I was actually going to ask for a recess before we take the vote.
Well, if you're moving, I'll second it.
Okay. Call for recess?
Peschel.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now, before you guys go and recess, know that you cannot talk
Yes.
about this decision in your recess with anyone on the board, okay? You are convening and recessing yourself. Just so you guys know, just in the sense of that this is still a public meeting, and that we recognize our decision-making in this process and the public's, how the public may view this.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, do you still have any rolls?
The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Board of Education is
I'm
currently in
bringing the regular scheduled meeting of the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education back into regular process from our recess. So, thank you for that. I do need to make a clarification or just do a point of order quick. There was some question in the midst of our debate in regards to how amendments are handled in this type of situation. So I did have it clarified that in an amendment where in a resolution that needs a supermajority, meaning 2/3 of the board, 5 votes to be in favor to move forward, in order to amend that resolution, we only need a simple majority on the amendment to do that. And so that was confirmed with our legal representation during the recess. So just wanted you guys to be clear and on the up and up, and that the public knows that we did look into that and to make sure that we were making that right decision. Secondly, I'm going to let Dr. Herzog go, and then I'll make a further comment.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that I was wrong. We needed a simple majority and not the super majority, I believe. So I want to publicly state I was wrong on that point. Thank you.
It wasn't needed, but it's okay. So thank you.
Good leadership.
The other element that as we go into making this decision, please understand that if we choose to not get 5 votes tonight on this resolution fails. And essentially, it dies. It can be brought back up through a process at the direction of Dr. Davis in regards on how to move forward with that. So just wanting you guys to know that up front so that we're not surprised in regard to the outcome and what happens after that. So is there any questions related to the process? I have one. Yes?
I didn't understand if it now only needs 4 votes? Or
Nope.
Still needs 5?
Good question. So this is still a resolution that needs a supermajority, 2/3 of the board, which is equal to 5 votes of the board to be considered a favorable motion or favorable resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yes?
I guess I'm going to maybe speak in general terms, but really, Dr. Herzog, we were at the HISA 6 meeting not 2 weeks ago, and one of the things that they asked us was, what is one of your passions? Why are you on the school board? And your answer stood out to me. Do you remember what it was? I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, but your memory is obviously better than mine. Please go ahead and share it.
You said you were on there, you have a passion for the disadvantaged students, for the minority students, for the economically disadvantaged, for special education. This is that moment. And I appreciate that because I think I have a passion for what that means too. And I really connected when you said that because I feel that as well. And that's why I feel strongly on this one. So.
Thank you for sharing that.
May I make a motion to vote? Are we ready to vote?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that the process, though? Moved?
It would be, the proper term would be to call the question.
Oh, sorry.
So,
But Barb, or Dr. Herzog has a comment.
go ahead, Dr. Herzog.
This is probably one of the most difficult decisions I have faced in 8 years on the school board. And it's not because I don't believe in the individuals. It's not because I'm not committed. It is because I'm committed to those who need voice. And I've always strived to do that. At the same time, I see bigger issues in terms of listening to our community who took time to vote. I see concerns with board governance where we perhaps would be overturning a unanimous committee decision, and I'm not here to be a rubber stamp, and I know none of you are either. Like Mrs. Carlin pointed out, we have a standard of students first. And as I look at the increased diversity in our community, although it's not 40%, and I was checking with Dr. Gudlock, because as I've just demonstrated, I can't remember what I said 2 weeks ago in a meeting. I really wrestle with this in terms of what does this mean long-term to board governance? What message do we send to our community if a vote goes in a way we don't approve? How could I have done a better job as chair of that committee in defining parameters with my two fellow board members so that we wouldn't be in this dilemma? I am not in favor of delaying this vote beyond tonight. I am not in favor of going back to the community or calling in election people to see hanging chads or any of that sort of thing. I think the time is now to make a vote. And I do just underline the things I've just stated, the issues of board governance, leadership, students who need voice, who don't typically have one, putting students first. So all of those are rambling around as I'm trying to reach a decision here. I guess but I've said enough, and it's time to vote if the rest of you are ready to vote.
Anyone? Okay.
I just have one thing.
Go for
Barb,
it.
do what you feel is right. The rest
Yeah.
will work out. Do what you feel.
Thank
know,
you.
Follow your heart.
I think I've done that, but I haven't stated it publicly, but I will shortly.
I agree.
But thank you, thank you.
So again, I want to come back to several experiences that I've had as an elected leader, and whether the community feels that those are the right steps to take, and how they involve committee processes and such like that. So now, I understand and actually respect the amount of work that people, staff, community members, board members, elected officials put into committee work. I have I don't have as much experience as, say, Dr. Herzog in regards to providing input and direction through committees and nonprofits and probably even the wealth around the board. But I do know that our community advocates for what's right, you know, and they have done that on several different levels. And I feel that our community has told us that these are individuals by a survey, and then by a consensus through a committee, that these are important individuals. And that's how I look at that information. I have been part of committees as an elected official where the board has not followed the direction for years, actually, of committees. And they make their decisions based on what they believe their political best understanding is in regards to doing that. And I'm asking all of you today to look beyond the idea that we gathered all this information, that we have this data, and look beyond that, and to look at the compassionate sense of what does our community look like right now, and what do we want it to be representative of for those students in the future. And it's many times we as leaders, we get caught in hindsight instead of foresight. And I think that's really what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to show that people of color are deserving of being named for buildings in our community, and that by doing that action, that we send a message that Oshkosh, that the Oshkosh Area School District and the broader Oshkosh community is a welcoming and compassionate community and wants to grow our community for persons of colors and their families, you know, across the board. And that's what I believe today that I'm doing, is making a decision and providing direction in that way, because I see what our community is today, and I see what I want our community to be representative and just what I would like them to see in the future as well. So that's what's driving me. So, yes, sir.
Personally, throughout this whole process, I tried completely to not look at the naming of the school as a racial issue. I intentionally tried to keep that out of the mix.
Sure.
I understand the desire. I mean, and I certainly want to be representative of, you know, want to see our community and everyone that's a part of it represented, you know, throughout every process. But we looked at each individual for who they were and what they did. We didn't go through the process in the facility and finance committee and say, this person's African American, this person's Asian, this person's Caucasian. That should be the most important component of making the decision, you know? So I completely understand the desire, for sure, but if we go in this direction moving forward, then we might as well just have surveys and say we're going to have this community or this school named after, we're only going to consider one race, or, you know, or one.
Sure.
You know, I'm just saying, I tried, or I always will look at it objectively and try not to make it, you know, black-white issue.
So I'm going to be honest and I'm going to be forthright. I came into this meeting absolutely wanting to vote for Jesse Jack Hooper. Absolutely. So along your lines, Oshkosh community person who has made a huge impact, not across color, but in regards to what the person does. So I'm changing my path? Yes. But I also feel that people like Jesse Jack Cooper, Val Phillips, Paul Poberezny are all worthwhile of being named for any facility in Oshkosh, whether it's a school or whether it's an educational facility that's by Fox Valley Tech or UW Oshkosh, whatever it might be. Those are all valuable names. But we have to get back to the idea that education means all. And providing walls for kids, for all kids, and sees that someone who is a person of color, I'm not afraid to say that I support persons of color and that's interesting to me to name a facility after a person of color. But that person also was a pioneer. I am not going to sit here and let what a pioneer did be invalidated in regards to what that person did. So it's not just about a person of color, it's about a person of color who went above and beyond what the world said that person could or could not do. And I think that's valuable. I think that's valuable for future students. And so, did I simplify my comments? Yes. Did I add to them in this circumstance? I believe so, because I agree with you. A person of color is just a person of color, but when you put in what they do in their lives, they're not just a person of color. They are a person who has changed lives. And that's what we're doing. We're putting a name on buildings that represent people that changed lives. So, and again, every single one of them are warranted of this. But I feel that this is one of those steps in foresight that we can take here. So I've expressed a lot. I think not everyone needs to hear me anymore.
I have
So,
one more.
Ms. Carlin?
I just wanted to say that I respectfully disagree that we're turning this into a racial issue. It's not. All three of these people are amazing people. They all deserve it completely. Where I'm coming from and what's making me second guess my vote is the fact that what is best for students. And at that school, Merrill, they have one of the highest populations of people of color. And when I think in those terms of having someone who represents them and can be a role model and can see a role model and know about that role model, that has made me start thinking. But I don't think it's a race issue per se. It's about equity and inclusion, and it's about picking the name that is best for students. That's what I always keep going back to on everything. So I've said enough too. I think we're ready to move on.
All right, so one more comment,
Yep.
one more hand.
Then I'll wrap it up because I have been kind of pushing this one. And I thank you all for listening. I went into that first meeting and I didn't know what the names were going to be. I didn't go to there thinking I'm going to vote for an African-American person regardless. I was blown away by the options that the community brought. And when you saw it, I saw a greater opportunity. And so does the fact that she's African-American come into it? It does. But as you said, it's about so much more. And so I'll agree. It is a piece of it.
Yeah, it is.
But it's when I was doing it, it was a piece to that, and it was not. If there wouldn't have been a qualified person or somebody picked, we're not going to pick anybody. Just like our teachers are, 98% white in our district, but we're going to hire qualified teachers, and if that's what we have, then that's what we have.
And
so it's also that.
And my comments are just.
I do understand what you're
Everyone
going.
is
Yes.
really qualified.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's a tough vote for sure.
Yep.
And I
Call the question.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Salaji,
Aye.
Wright,
No.
Wyman,
No.
Carlin,
Aye.
Herzog,
Aye.
Carnes,
Aye.
Peschel.
Aye.
5 ayes, 2 noes, the resolution carries.
All right. Board, I want to thank you for naming the next middle school in Oshkosh, as well as the Media Center and the STEM Lab. Thank you for your service on this issue. All right. Next up, we have number 15, and that is the WASB resolutions. It reads, "To be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education hereby direct the WASB delegate to support resolutions forwarded to all WASB members prior to the convening of the assembly. Be it further resolved that the WASB delegate is directed to vote on amendments or resolutions that arise from the floor of the delegate assembly in a manner that is consistent with the position of the original resolutions as filed with the Secretary of the Board of Education on December 15th of 2021 in accordance with the rules and regulations and policies of the Board of Education." Looking for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Herzog, seconded by Wright. We are open for discussion. Go ahead, Dr. Herzog.
I will make this very brief in the interest of time here. Mrs. Carlin is our representative this year to the Delegate Assembly, which will be held on the Wednesday of the WASB, WASBO, and WASDA. I think I said that right, convention. Just to highlight a couple of these, if you haven't had a chance to read the detail, the first resolution has to do with making sure that children who are victims of sex trafficking are not charged with crimes. There is one dealing with increased funding for students with disabilities, raising the percent of reimbursement to districts. There's another one dealing with advanced learning. They do not use the term gifted, but they rather refer to ways of meeting the needs of students who need challenges and to extend their learning. There's a resolution, it's either 5 or 6, dealing with making sure that state categorical aid for school mental health services is broadened to include more staff than the short list they currently have. There's one on curriculum, which would require development of curriculum and professional training on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, as we're talking about diversity. This was one that came out of the Milwaukee Public Schools. Resolution 8 is likely to get a fair amount of attention from my viewpoint because in addition to the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, most similar state organizations belong to a national organization called the National School Board Association, or NSBA. This resolution allows the WASB to either maintain membership in that organization or perhaps a newly formed organization. There have been some issues over the last couple of years with regard to the National School Board Association, which has caused a number of state associations to reconsider their membership. So those are some of the highlights. This takes an afternoon. If you happen to be down there for the convention and you don't have anything to do that afternoon, you're certainly welcome to attend. Oftentimes we have 20 or 30 resolutions, but this year it's a much shorter list, so thank you for that.
Any questions? Any further discussion? Ms. Carlin? No?
Oh, I was just going to give an update, and I'll keep it very brief. Mr. Carnes, Dr. Herzog, and I attended a training session at HISA 6, which was very valuable. Oh,
Does it relate to this?
no.
All right, so hold on.
I'm sorry, we're
I
not
thought
at announcements
maybe as
yet.
the delegate that you would want.
Oh,
if there's
I
anything you
thought we
wanted
were
to
doing
say.
announcements, my bad.
Nope.
No, move
So,
along.
all right, you did a great job giving a good overview of that.
Thank you.
And I'm
So
excited to be the
what we're looking
delegate.
for is direction for our delegate to vote on these.
Correct.
And the recommendations were to vote in the affirmative on all of these.
Yes.
So, any other questions? All right, please call the roll.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
Aye.
Peschel?
Aye.
Szilagyi?
Aye.
The ayes have it, resolution carries.
Thank you. All right, we are on Resolution 16. It reads, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the calendar adjustment for the 2021-2022 school year as filed with the Secretary of the Board of Education. Looking for a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second. Aye.
Moved by Carlin, seconded by Wright. All right, I'm going to have discussion be led by Dr. Davis in regards to explaining what this resolution does.
Yes, so this resolution provides us with 2 mental health and wellness days for our staff, and that would be all of our staff in our entire district, so including teachers, support staff, administrators. So 2 paid mental health and wellness days. These are accounted for in our current calendar. We have 5.8 days that were built in for snow days. So it's time that wouldn't be added on to the school year, if you will. We'll still keep 3.8 days for snow emergencies or weather emergencies types of things. But we think this is an important acknowledgement for all of the hard work that our staff has done under very unusual circumstances this year and some difficult circumstances. So we just want to use this as a gesture to be able to acknowledge that. Also provides a break for our families, a 5-day weekend for our families, because that also butts up on our professional development day on Monday. So to provide the opportunities for some family time also.
Okay. Before we get into any discussion, I just want to declare that I'm not going to be part of this discussion. I'm not. I'm going to abstain from voting in it, as my family would benefit from the mental health days, as my wife is a employee of the district. So, Mr. Carnes, go ahead.
Does substitutes are not part of the pay as.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So
yes.
that doesn't
Yep.
disqualify me from voting.
That would be correct.
Let me just ask a clarifying question that I know the answer to, but I've heard circulating around. Who came up with this idea?
So it was part of our executive team, part of what I think I brought it forward. Bob and I had a conversation about, what can we do for staff? And so certainly, like everything we do is a team effort, as we're kind of working toward this. But we want to make sure that we're, affirming the work that staff is doing.
I just want that to be clear to everybody here and listening that the administration made this decision to bring it to the board and not any other way.
Sure.
Because there was some question about that. I am 100% behind this.
Thank you.
This is a great move, and
Ms. Wyman?
I think we were all 100% behind
Yeah.
it, so I think you can call the question.
I was gonna comment.
ahead.
I was the only person last week who didn't say that I was in favor of it. No, that's okay. I just like to take time to think about votes, and we did hear from one gentleman who said that he was not in favor as well, so I wanted to acknowledge that. I will say, though, that between that time 2 weeks ago and now, every conversation I've had with parents and with people in my neighborhood is to yes, please vote for this. My kids need it. We heard from the 2 high school students that night that they were in favor of it. And it's noted that we have 5.8 days built in. I think that's been the case for at least the last 3 years that I've been on the board into our calendar that are extra, and that's just for the high school. Actually, at the elementary level, it's more like 10 extra days every year. So I think to speak to the concern that this takes away from students' education, I just wanted to point out that every year we actually educate days beyond
Correct.
the required necessities.
Yeah.
And so for this year, now I am 100% on board, and I think that it's a wise decision, and thank you for bringing this forward.
I knew you would be.
You were right. Last week I didn't have an opinion yet.
Any other comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin? Aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Carnes?
aye.
Salaji?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
The ayes have it, resolution carries.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Brilliant.
Thank you.
All right. Resolution, was that 15? That was 16,
17.
sorry.
17.
Too much paper over here. All right, we are on resolution number 17. It reads, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Oshkosh Area School District approve substitute teacher salary increase as filed with the Secretary of the Board of Education. Looking for a motion in a second.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Salaji, seconded by Carlin. Mr. Davis, or Dr. Davis, can you lead us in a description of this resolution?
Yes, as Dr. Herzog mentioned before, in facilities and finance, this is something that was discussed, and really an opportunity to get us in a more competitive, in a very competitive environment, to be more competitive with our subs. So our subs are doing incredibly important work. There's certainly a shortage, as we know, for teachers, bus drivers, but substitute teachers are no different. And so it's important for us to be able to remain competitive and do this as a responsive move in this school year, that it's not something that we have to wait a year to do. We really need to be able to make this type of move now.
Okay. I'm gonna make my comment first. So I'm not going to embark in any type of discussion on this, as I have a close family member who is a substitute teacher in the district. So anyone else?
Yeah, I will follow that. I will not be involved in this conversation, as my wife is a substitute teacher in the district.
Mr. Wright?
I have no family members employed in the district, so I will speak to this. The Facilities and Finance Committee meeting, we recognized, that Dr. Davis and his staff brought to our attention that we're having a tough time finding substitute teachers, and that we're not even spending most of the money we have allocated towards substitute teachers, because we're currently asking our full-time teachers to pick up extra shifts throughout the day, extra classes. So this was an easy decision, because we're hopeful that it will help prevent staff burnout, and that it'll widen widen our, or increase our substitute teacher pool. So we are in favor of it in the Facilities and Finance Committee once again. And we're hopeful everyone else will be tonight.
Well put, Mr. Wright, thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Saleh.
I was just going to thank Mr. Wright for pointing that out. I think for me, this is like the calendar issue. It's about making sure we don't have staff burnout, because I do know as a teacher that that is something that can burn you out, is covering classes when there's no substitutes. I also wanted to point out, I've only been on this board about 2.5 years, and this will be the 3rd time that we have increased substitute teacher wages. So this is obviously an issue that keeps needing to be addressed, and I'm excited to approve it one more time.
All right. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Carlin?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Salaji?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
The ayes have it, resolution carried.
Thank you for that. All right. Next up, we have requests for future agenda items.
I don't know
You
where to
don't-
put this.
Okay, go for
I
it.
don't have a future agenda item, but I'm wondering if there's some way that when we get packets, if, with 196 pages, on the first agenda page, could it say, Resolution 17 is on page 194, so you don't have to scroll.
Get a table
You know
of
you're going
contents.
to 194.
Yeah.
So there is a program that, at least on mine, is called CAMI. And what it does is it annotates each resolution so that all you have to do is touch the resolution and it'll, on the agenda, and it'll bring it right to that.
I have used that in the past, and I don't know if it's a user error, but that did not work with this one for some reason. But that has usually worked for me in the past.
We can look into that.
Sometimes it's how the file is saved. Sometimes if you don't put those hyperlinks in, it doesn't do that. So if it's been doing it okay, it's probably just this one file. But if it's consistently not doing it, then we got to take a look at it.
I never knew to do it.
Okay.
So okay.
It doesn't, it helps get you down, it doesn't help get you back.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
always you still have to kind of scroll all the way.
Well, then I just go to page number and hit 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Oh,
so-
that's good.
So how about after the meeting, we, kind of show you if that's something you want to go over, Beth?
Sure.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So thank you for bringing it up, though. More future agenda items? Go ahead, Dr. Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. Peschel. We had a report some weeks ago from Katie Neiman in the Communications Marketing Department, and she had a request for some resources moving forward. I don't believe we ever discussed those or took action on those. I'm not sure where we are with those, but I'd like to see that come back on a future agenda.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other items for the future? That's what we do, is make items for the future. Any announcements? Ms. Carlin, I think this is the time for you.
So Mr. Carnes, Dr. Herzog, and I attended a WASB session a couple weeks ago.
CISA 6, actually.
I'm sorry. Jeez, it's been a long night, right?
I know, yeah, it has.
CISA 6, and it was incredibly valuable. We were talking a lot about how school board members are handling the pandemic, and we were talking about things that we can do to be more transparent and navigate through all the pandemic information and whatnot. So I'm putting that out there in case any board members want to attend future CISA 6 training events, because I find them incredibly valuable, and I think you all would too. Do you have anything to add?
I think that you and Mr. Carnes have covered it very well tonight, so thank you. I think I've said enough tonight.
I have too.
I guess I want to go off of that a little bit, and in regards to the state education conference that some of us are going to in January, the conference the conference is Wednesday through Friday, I believe, but there's a day on Tuesday which you pay a little extra for, but it's really, really board driven, that day is. And it would, I signed up for a topic hesitantly because I really wanted to sign up for all of them, but I couldn't. So I guess I wanted to encourage that if you're going to go for that day as a board member perspective, because then each one of us might be able to sign up for a different one, and kind of come back to each other with knowledge about what took place in those presentations. So just to put it out there, early deadline, early registration was ended today, but that doesn't mean that you still can't you still can't sign up and go, because you can literally sign up the day of to be able to go to the event. So, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, those Tuesday sessions are in the afternoon primarily, I believe, and they're multi-hour, so it's not like scratching the surface. You actually delve deep, and they're often very engaging and interactive. So that tends to be different from some of the rest of the conference, where it's basically an hour-long session and you don't get into a lot of depth, but still get good ideas.
Okay. Any other announcements? Seeing none. All right. Let's, I'm going to read this, and then we can adjourn into executive session. So our plan is to adjourn into executive session to, one, consider the disciplinary data of a specific person's Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent F. A, review expulsion recommendation from an expulsion hearing officer for a middle school student who engaged in conduct while at school or while under the supervision of a school authority which endangered the property, health, or safety of others, endangered the property, health, or safety of any employee or school board member of the school district in which the pupil is enrolled, and engaged in conduct constituting repeated refusal or neglect to obey the rules. Wisconsin State Statute 120.13, Parent 1, Parent C, Parent E.
I move to waive the reading of Section B since it's identical to Section A.
Second.
All right. Do we take a vote on that? All right, please call the roll.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Peschel.
Did you say my name? Sorry.
Sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so that was just for B, correct, as I understood it? Okay. 2, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E. A, discuss potential purchase of properties. 3, considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C. A, discuss employee performance. B, private conference concerning teacher contract manner. Following the private conference, the board may reconvene in open session to take action, if necessary, on matters from closed session. Looking for a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Carlin, seconded by Wright. Please call the roll.
Carnes.
Aye.
Peschel.
Aye.
Malachi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned into executive session.
All right, thank you. Let's convene in IST.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah, I believe we're in the IST room.
In the IST room in 5 minutes.
The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. Helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live.
Good evening. The Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education is reconvening into open session following a closed session. At this time, we have, we will be considering a motion that was prepared during the closed session under Wisconsin state law regarding the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public official over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises authority under Wisconsin statute 19.85 paren 1 paren C. I believe we have a motion prepared
I
at this
move
time.
to accept the resignation and agreement with Mr. Salm.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
The ayes have it, the resolution is carried.
Thank you very much. At this time, then, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who moved and who seconded.
I moved, Carlin moved, Wright seconded.
Yep.
Right, me, Carnes.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
everybody.
You're welcome.